So overall, I found this movie kind of very interesting. It was semi-predictable, where it kind of hit all the movie cliches for a horror movie, like the jump scares, the people not believing it's real, then finding out it is, and the main character trying to save the day by sacrificing themselves. So even though they attempted to make a twist at the end where Maya looks like she's going to sacrifice Riley, you kind of know that she's not going to. Now, obviously, there's a twist about the movie that I'm not going to talk about. I'm going to let you guys, for those of you who are big into horror movies, I'm going to let you guys go watch the movie for the twist. Um, but there is one thing that you're kind of not expecting, but expecting at the same time. It's a mini twist. Okay, so it is predictable to some degree, especially if you know and love horror movies a lot. You kind of see it coming, but I won't reveal it here. So basically, overall, even though it was relatively predictable, it was nice to just have it kind of hit the right level of predictability, right? Where it wasn't too predictable, but nothing like over the head. Like, we're gonna hold your hand and explain everything to you, and consequently, you're gonna know every last little detail in the first 5 minutes of the movie. The hand itself, for example, although they say, "Oh yeah, it's the hand of this person," and they don't go into big details. They're implying that there's a real hand underneath the plaster, but you never find out if that's true. You never know for sure. None of them take time to break the hand and open it up to see what's really in there. They're not 100% sure of the background story, right? Even the host, I think it was Joss, I got it from a friend of mine, and you're not really getting a whole lot of detail. So I kind of like it like that as well, where yes, you're getting some details that make certain amount of things predictable, but they're not giving you too much either. So I know that they're making a sequel to this one. They've already announced that they're in development for it, and you kind of see with the end of the movie that this will be a sequel. There's no doubt about it. And they kind of do that with a lot of movies nowadays, where they kind of leave the ending of the movie open-ended enough where you kind of get the impression where, okay, if they're going to do a sequel, they're going to do a sequel with this. There's a way to do it. But even if they don't, it kind of gives you that right amount of question marks. Like, oh, what would happen if they did a sequel? I would make it this, I would make it that. It gives that kind of debate, especially with a good cult classic movie like you have with some movies in the 80s and 90s, where they're like, oh yeah, we'll just make this random movie, but because of the ending, people kind of like, ooh, what's going to happen, or is this going to happen, is that going to happen, etc., right? Which leads me in just a little bit of a tangent. I just found out recently, or a couple days ago, that they will make a John Wick 5. So I was hoping, and I think for those of you who haven't seen my John Wick 4 movie review, I was hoping that they would end it there, and then possibly, if they are going to make another John Wick movie, quote unquote, that it would be a spin-off where you would see the development of another character, or maybe they would make a prequel, that kind of thing. So maybe that's what they're going to do with John Wick 5. They're going to turn it into a prequel, maybe, I don't know, but apparently it is going to be John Wick 5. But I guess that movie was making too much money that they're not going to let it go. But I do think that they're going to make a movie about the Continental, or TV show, if I remember correctly. So I'm not surprised. And I'm just hoping that if they do truly go into a Continental TV show, that they don't give too much detail, because that's one of the things that I and many people like about the original John Wick, so John Wick 1, was that there was so much mystery. They gave you sprinkles of details. You knew that there was this underworld. You knew that there was things, that there was a code of ethics and a particular payment plan and all that stuff, but you didn't have so much detail that you felt like you were coddled and somebody was holding your hand. But anyways, that's enough of that tangent. So, Talk to Me is one of those movies that if you're looking for a highbrow horror movie, this is not it. And I've seen a lot of people trying to compare this movie to Midsommar or Hereditary. This is not one of those movies. And it's no disrespect to the writers and directors and the actors that put themselves into. You can tell that everybody involved in this project really was rooting for its success, really gave it its all, gave it 120%. That's always respectable whenever you see people doing, especially in the arts and entertainment world, that they're pouring themselves into it, and there's nothing wrong. But it's just, this is not one of those whodunit murder mystery kind of horror movies where you're wondering what's happening. You know that there's an evil force here, an evil spirit that's behind the hand that's involved here, and that it wants ill will towards the teenagers that are participating in this. Basically a seance. It's basically a seance for millennials, right? You don't have the Ouija board, or you're all surrounded on a round table. It's you really get the sense that this is a seance for the younger crowd, for those that are, late teens, early 20s, basically. So people born around 2000, 2010 kind of era, right? Where they're not doing things like what I would do as a Gen Xer or older, right? It kind of almost feels like they're like Jumanji, right? That you get the sense of the game Jumanji. For those of you who saw the Rock remake, where they wanted to tie it into the original Jumanji, but also bring it into the new world. So rather than it being a board game, the kid in the opening scene just like, who plays with board games nowadays, right? And just chucks the game aside and just like has no interest. And then the game realized, oh yeah, nobody's gonna play with me if it's a board game. I have to adapt it. Of course, what does it do? It turns itself into a video game. And of course, that's how the first kid got stuck in Jumanji, by playing the video game version of it rather than the board game. So you kind of feel like they did that with this movie, where rather than having the classic seance that you would see in the 1800s or 1900s, that they kind of revamped it and say, hey, let's have this. Could almost be like an art project mishap somehow, and turn that into a form of seance, right? So I like the fact that they've made a little bit of adaptations and changes to this quote unquote idea of possessions and the spirit world and the darkness from the other realm. And I do like the fact that you don't know who or what the evil is. You just know that there's an evil thing. At first, I thought that, and now I will kind of want to see how it develops. My personal hypothesis is that the spirits that you're seeing are not necessarily evil, but they're maybe stuck in purgatory, right? And they're basically trying to deal with things, right? Some of them might not have been the nicest people when they were alive, but they're not necessarily the people that, okay, you're clearly going to the bad part of the underworld, right? So I kind of feel like this is what it could be. But I also feel that maybe they might play into Incantations and the movie Incantation. But there's also a couple other movies that they could play into and try to maybe connect to, like The Further, and connect it to The Nun or something like that, right? And be a spin off of that movie, right? Or what's that movie? I'm blanking. But anyways, there's a couple other movies where they can play it into. But overall, like I said, this is the kind of movie that's, if you're just looking for a cute little horror movie that you're going to spend 90 minutes, an hour, something like an hour and a half, I think it was an hour and a half, 2 hours maximum. It was a quick movie, to the point. It's a good horror movie. There's a little bit of gore, there's some gore, but it's definitely not the goriest movie I've ever seen. I wouldn't recommend it for people that are not really big into horror movies, because there's just enough gore that it might be too much for people. So if you're, have a certain sensitivity to blood and all that kind of stuff, I would recommend not watching this movie. But overall, if your threshold for, things that are gory is fairly high, if you've seen the Saw movies, for example, and thought, that was easy peasy, then Talk to Me is not going to be anything that's going to bother you too much. I wasn't very bothered by the blood and gore in this movie, but there was definitely a certain amount of things that happened, like at the end scene that really got to me, because it's like, oh, now she's trapped in this world, this other side. Like, is she gonna get herself out of it, or are her friends gonna figure it out? What's gonna happen, right? So I kind of like that part of the movie where it kind of has you scratching your head at the end of the movie, and you kind of like, at the same time, it does answer, because at the beginning you see a couple of the ghosts where it's like, oh, where am I? What's going on? So it kind of explains at the same time. The beginning of the movie is explained by the end of the movie, so that's a good thing too. But I can't wait to see what they do in the sequel, to see how they turn things around. Are all the characters coming back, or is it just going to be the Mia character? Are her friends going to try to contact her in the spirit world? Like, what's going to happen, right? So we'll see. Hopefully in a year and a half, 2 years, I don't know how long it's going to take them to make this movie. Hopefully I'll be coming to you guys with a Talk to Me 2 movie review. So we'll see. So I recommend this movie for those of you who want a light horror movie to watch. I liked it. It was overall pretty enjoyable, and I hope that you guys like me presenting my movie reviews in video form instead of going live. I know I pushed back 3 of my lives that I was supposed to have in August, just because where I live now, I moved, as some of you guys know. I still haven't, been too lazy to bring my computer to my new place and all that. So I still have to get that set up. So that's why I figured, okay, I'll give myself a little bit of time to get things moved around, potentially even get myself a new computer, depending on how I get my finances organized. Anyways, I'll let you guys go. I hope you guys enjoyed this movie review. Of course, give me a like, leave me a comment, share, subscribe, all that jazz. You guys know what to do. Have a great one, guys.